for life.
Okay.
So we saw A Wrinkle in Time.
So was it like the book?
No. No, it was not.
You just read the book, didn't you?
Which we can go into.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, because this is a particular favorite of mine growing up, the book. It was one of those books that, like, when you're like a girl, it's fairly smart, but, you know, kind of awkward and terrible at people.
Yeah.
You kind of read them and they make you feel better. Stuff like A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah.
Matilda. Dealing with dragons, like the kind of heroines that have, like, are deeply flawed but still manage to, like, save the day and learn something about themselves.
Yeah.
Except for Cimarine. Cimarine's is awesome in every single way. So I reread the book in anticipation of going to see the movie, and my main takeaway is, boy, this is a lot more Jesus-y than I remember it being.
Oh, the book?
Yeah, it's like, it's pretty Jesus-y.
I guess that makes sense, because in my case, I didn't read this book, but in 5th grade, and I went to a religious school, in 5th grade, our teacher, like, read it to us, which means I wasn't
paying attention.
I can't...
That's like the worst on your ADD.
Yes, it is. Like, I can't... It's why I can't listen to books on tape, or have stories read to me like that, or listen to someone tell a long story.
Yeah, the opposite. I love being read to, but that's neither here nor there.
I wish I could. Like, I wish I could listen to a book on tape or something like that, but I can't. I can't. And so, yeah,
that's
like, this was read to me, but it might as well have been reading to the wall. So I don't know anything about the book.
So out of curiosity, I was looking up to see, you know, if they like upped the Jesus-iness or like kind of eliminated it, because one of the articles I read is basically that when it came out in the 60s, a lot of fundamental and like conservative Christians were upset by it and moved to get it banned from school shelves, because it kind of combined, like, kind of said, like, hey, Christianity and science can coexist peacefully, you know, like, understanding the universe helps you understand God a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cut to nowadays, when the Christians are upset that they took Jesus out of this movie and left science in.
Sure.
And so one of the articles that I read, I think it was like the Federalist or something, basically the premise was, if movie adaptations of books like this can't cater to the die-hard fans of the original subject matter, then what is the purpose of them? And my reaction was, go fuck yourself. So I feel like even though this movie wasn't for me, I'm disinclined to put it in, like, the hate passionately pile, and more in the it's not for me pile. Because, like, so
I think Jesus is going to be really glad he was written out of this movie. I hated this movie.
And that's fine, but, like, for me, like, when I was growing up, I never watched, like, Labyrinth, or what was the one with Tim Curry?
Oh, Legend.
Yeah. And so, like, watching them as an adult, I did not care for those movies. But you could see where if you watched them for the first time at a very specific age, it would resonate with you. And that was kind of the feeling I got from this movie.
I didn't get that. I didn't get that at all from this. I got that from this. If Labyrinth sucked,
well, like, how old were you when you first watched Labyrinth?
Like, I'm not even.
This is my point.
I'm really not a fan of Legend necessarily. I didn't grow up with it. I don't like it as much as its fan, but I didn't grow up with Legend. I didn't see Legend until I was much, much older. Labyrinth I saw when I was younger, enjoyed it fine, but didn't watch it a lot after that. Maybe saw it once when I was older. There is, even though I'm not necessarily in the fan base for those movies are masterpieces compared to this.
I'm comparing them in my head.
This
only
movie,
because, first of all, I'm trying to overcome the bias of I really didn't like what they changed from the book of this movie, and again, we can go into that. But also, I just felt so old watching this movie.
I felt confused watching this. Like, this movie didn't at all remind. I was never thinking about. I was never thinking about Labyrinth or Dark Crystal or anything like that when I was watching this movie. When I was watching this film,
Dark Crystal, that's another one.
Yeah. I was thinking that some madman went into an insane asylum in 1969 and gave the patients $100 million to make a movie, and they're all hopped up on their heads from a bad acid trip from the summer of love, and this is the product that we got. This movie was insane. It was like watch. You know what would have saved this movie for me if it was a musical? Because this would have been the kind of musical that I like musicals anyway, but this would have been a kind that I really, really, really love, which is like something from 1980, like The Apple, where an alien came down from outer space, spent 20 minutes here, and decided to remake Hair. Like this movie was...
Okay, this movie wasn't no Hair. Okay.
No, it's certainly not, but it's maybe what an alien thinks it is. This movie was madness on screen. It was like Dave gave me the best weed he's ever had, or the worst, arguably speaking, and put Tomorrowland on the television, and this is what my brain is telling me that it is.
And again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, how is that different from Dark Crystal?
Because, Dark Crystal's weird. It's just a better written movie. It's a better written movie. The effects are better. The acting is way better. Like, okay, sure, there's weird stuff that also happens in Zardoz. But there's more. I rewatched
Zardoz before I watched this.
There's more to carry Zardoz than this movie. Like, yeah, they both seem like they're probably taking place inside the tabernacle, but it's like you go to some fucked up nightclub one night, you might have a really good time. You go to it another night, you might have a bad drunk experience. Like, they're both just... One has some kind of depth to it. This one is acted like the worst TGIF sitcom that I've seen recently.
Like, the casting for Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, Mrs. Which, heavily touted for like, oh yeah, Oprah, for sure, did not make a whole lot of sense to me, and those three were my main problem with this movie, in terms of the movie being objectively bad, not in terms of it being just not being the audience, especially as a fan of the original book, because in the original book, those three are like, they're angels,
yeah,
and they're like in disguise as like weird old women. And instead, in this one, they're like sparkle fairies in disguise as other more different sparkle fairies.
No, they acted like they were being directed to be like they're just like in Batman and Robin. They're acting like Joel Schumacher directed these characters, and they could easily be servants to Two-Face from Batman Forever.
And so we got Reese Witherspoon, who's easily the most Two-Face assistant in this movie, as Mrs. Whatsit, who they decided to make a bitch for no reason. She is not a bitch in the book. Like, at the very end, when Meg figures out that love is the answer, spoiler alert, love is the answer, one of the reasons she does is because Mrs. Whatsit told her, like, oh yeah, you gotta go back, I'm so sorry, I love you. And Charles Wallace was, like, trying to, like, bring her down. He's like, Mrs. Whatsit hates you. And she's like, no, she doesn't, she loves me, she told me so. Love is the answer.
God, I just felt like there's holes in my brain watching this, because I spent 40 minutes of this movie so jaw-dropped about what was happening in front of me, and then after a while, it was maybe around when Zach Galifianakis showed up as John Belushi's samurai character from Saturday Night Live.
That character was an old lady in the book. It's like this movie just didn't want to fucking hire any old ladies.
I drifted in and out so hard in the second half of this movie.
I heard you snoring at one point.
No, I never fell asleep. I never pulled a Brian.
Maybe you were just like sighing loudly in the back of your throat.
A couple of times I did. There's a couple of performances that I liked in the movie. I did like the main girl, and I did like Chris Pine a lot. The only time there's a few decent things I can say about this movie. It's well shot. It's a well shot film. The main girl, I thought, did a good job, and I thought Chris Pine did too. Whenever there was a scene that was working for me, it was one of the scenes with Chris Pine in it. But he's only in like 4 scenes of this movie. When she and Chris Pine meet back up later in the movie, it was actually a fairly well acted scene, because it contained the only 2 good performances in this film.
I was gonna say, because I was doing a breakdown of the 3 witches, and Mindy Kaling, who played Mrs. Who, I thought was the best actor of the 3, which is weird to say about Oprah, because did she win an Oscar for Color Purple?
I think so, yeah.
She was just kind of beaming beatifically her way through this movie. But Mindy Kaling was hobbled by the fact that they made this really weird stylistic choice, because Mrs. Who in the book, like, occasionally drops quotes, because it helps her kind of express the ideas coming to her head. In the movie, she speaks exclusively in quotes. And I thought that was very, very strange, because it made it less comprehensible, and comprehensibility was this movie's main issue.
At least she didn't go full Bumblebee from the Transformers movies. Like, suddenly she starts quoting, like, Donna Summer or something like that.
She quoted fucking Outcast and
oh, right, she
Hamilton.
did. Look, this is the same movie that by the end of it, they put the lead character on the same pedestal as Oscar Schindler, so anything is possible with this film.
They're supposed to mention Jesus in that part. They decided not to for some reason. Supposed to be like Euclid and, you know, Oscar Schindler.
They mentioned Einstein and man, yeah. So the older kid in the movie.
Who the fuck was that?
Oh, that was, I can't believe it's not Asa Butterfield.
It looked like he was wearing face prostheses, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just like they were filming him from a weird angle.
That kid was so bad. That kid is seeing just the universe open up in front of him. These giant, like Oprah the size of a skyscraper, people going around with blue lipstick like they're from Dungeons and Dragons, and the same expression this kid has through the whole movie is if he's just quietly studying a McDonald's menu.
Well, because Calvin's a weird character in the book, because he is a sort of, like, he's strange for what's supposed to be a 14-year-old boy. He kind of embraces everything that happens. Like, sure, why not? This is better than my actual life.
Like,
but in the movie, he kind of portrayed that as just like a...
This is happening now. The grass is now water. Okay, fine. And I'm sure it's the... I'm sure it's this is the case in the book. This isn't a very well-written movie, so it kind of comes across as funny. It's one of those movies where everything has its own name, you know, like, oh, there's the templatist or whatever, and here's the, like, kitesicum or something, and then, like, well, what do you call that? Oh, that's it. Like, did you just give up that day? Or is Pennywise the clown is the one who's causing all this shit to happen? Like, I'm sure that's the case in the book, but...
No, fuck.
It's not? Okay, fuck this movie.
It's fucking called It in the book. It and the Black Thing.
Okay.
But first of all, like, It is the name it gave itself, and the Black Thing is the name the children gave it. And it's, like, way more terrifying in the book. Because, like, it's not just, like, the scene with, like, the bouncing balls.
Yeah.
That goes into, like, the whole story of the dystopia that this planet has become since they've all succumbed to the Black Thing. Where they have to... It's... like, they have to stick to these prearranged scripts to live their lives in, and, like, there's one little boy who's bouncing his ball out of sequence, and, like, the mom, like, realizes and, like, drags him in kicking and screaming, and then later, when they're in the facility that it lives in, which is supposed to be, like, a brain, but we'll get to that, they walk past this cell with the little boy with his ball bouncing it on the floor, and every time it hits the ground, he just screams.
Like, yeah, and in this, it's just what you see in the trailer. And it's like many things in this movie where it's something weird happening, but why? Like, okay.
No. In the book, it has this planet, wants everyone to be just so, and if they're not, he makes them be just so. And it's a pulsing brain. And so when the kids go in, he's not, like, tempting them with cool versions of themselves. It's basically just trying to badger their brain into submission until it's like everybody else. And it's genuinely terrifying, especially for a children's book. And I feel like it was a really weird decision to take that part out of the movie.
When it was the little kid, I'll get to this kid in a second, but when it was the little...
Charles Wallace?
If you don't know this kid's name, they say it a million times in the first 10 minutes of the movie. When it got to when the kid's, like, suddenly, like, evil and there's puppet Michael Pena standing there...
That puppet was not in the book.
I was sitting there like... Okay, so what we do? Demonic Toys was way scarier than this. We're gonna do the evil kid. First of all, this fucking kid. I don't want to be...
Charles Wallace's precociousness is charming in the book. in the movie, it kind of made you want to punch a little boy.
Yeah, it's like...
And I don't know if it was the actor, I don't know if it was the lines of his they chose to keep in the movie, which were segmented at best, because in the book he's holding on, like, adult conversations with people, and it's, like, it makes sense, and they're, the people that he's the closest to are interacting with him on that level, and you can tell he's really, 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 really bright. In this, it sounded like he was parodying things he had heard.
This felt like they told him to act like the kid from Fuller House. Like, it's like, I don't like this kind of performance anyway, but it's like, okay, you walk into a TGIF sitcom kind of expecting that half the time, which is I don't like most of those shows. I don't expect it in $100 million, however much this movie cost, mainstream Disney movie, where this kid is acting so bad and so obnoxious that he'd fail a Diary of a Wimpy Kid audition. Like, this kid, and he's in most of the movie. Like, when they go off, like, okay, we're going to explore these worlds now, come with us, Charles Wallace. I'm like, no, please, no, just please, can a bus come on screen and just get, no, Charles Wallace, no! All right, we're on our way. Like, can that please happen in this? God, I hate this kind of kid performance. Like, this kid is so bad, I want to apologize to Kevin Sorbo's kids from Let There Be Light. At least that's an indie movie. I couldn't.
It was, like, I think the kid did his best, all things considered. He was just like a little 5-year-old kid, you know?
I know, and I'm trying to be...
Jake fucking Lloyd him.
Like, I'm not... I'm trying to be nicer than when... like... Because, man...
You did just wish for him to get hit by a bus.
That's nothing. Like, I said I wish his character got hit by a bus.
That's a very important distinction.
It is. Because go watch Dave and Brian talk about Let There Be Light when Brian's sitting there going, like, I want to cut that kid.
Oh, boys.
Oh, boys.
Child mutilation.
Like, at least I'm sort of like, man, God, this kid is like one of the worst parts of this movie. But like, I'm sitting there like, okay, let me try not to wish like
wish actual physical harm upon it. It must be hard to cast a 5-year-old who's supposed to speak like an adult man. I can't imagine trying to find a 5-year-old up to that task. Or even like a super short 8-year-old.
The lines aren't helping this kid. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. The lines aren't doing this kid any fucking favors.
Yeah, like the first line he says in this movie is, Meg, let's be exclusive. That's like halfway through the actual conversation from the book.
God, the first time I remember seeing this kid in the movie was when he was sitting there and he says, shame on you to the teachers, and they direct him to do it with a stern finger going out like that. I'm like, oh no.
No.
Can we not do this in this movie, please?
Plus,
and
Charles Wallace would never do that. He would just pretend not to hear it, and then, you know.
God.
Because like that, in the book, everyone thinks he's slow because he doesn't really talk to anyone except for his family because he doesn't want to start trouble. He knows it'll start trouble if people realize how smart he is.
He doesn't seem slow in this. In this, it seems like he's pissed that he lost out to play young Sheldon. Like, and also later, he had some line later on where I was like, God, stop giving this character lines, where it said something like, oh, word of the day, luminous. I'm like, that might have been one of the times.
And again, I was so mad at that point that they were sparkle fairies because they're not supposed to be sparkle fairies. But then she changed into it like a plant, a lettuce manta ray. Which again was not the book. She's supposed to turn into a Pegasus. God damn it! And then they go riding off, and then she teaches them how to listen to the other Pegasus' music.
Riding off like vegetarian avatar.
Yeah, I don't know what the shit that was. They just wanted to leave Reese Witherspoon's face on it or something.
I had no idea if you were liking this movie or not. I was sitting there like, God, I fucking hate this movie.
I was wondering if you were liking this movie, and then I looked over at you, and you're like,
I looked over at you a couple of times because I was like, I don't know. Sometimes it's easy to sense if the other person likes the movie or not. This one, when I was watching this movie, I was like, I don't know, like it's pretty. Maybe this is a lot like the book. I don't know.
No, it's not.
So a few times I looked over at you. Like one was like 20 minutes in, and you were kind of sitting there like that. And
I was still confused as to why they'd made Ms. Watson, Mrs. Watson, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which sparkle fairies.
And then the leaf part, I saw you go like. And I'm like, okay, maybe, all right, yeah, like maybe Maybe she doesn't like this movie either. And then I heard you sniffling a couple of times over
Just
there.
because the movie makes me cry does not mean that I like
and then I remember that when I heard that and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to be a villain in this video. Like, so
No.
But then I remembered,
I'm a
like,
crybaby, you know this.
and then I remembered that I was like, she is crying, but maybe she hates this movie worse than I do. Like, I don't know, man. Like, this, I hated sitting through this movie. Oh God, it's like I want. It's like I want this to be one of those movies where I'm like, you gotta see this shit to know how much they're fucking up. And to a point, you kind of do. Part of me is like, why don't you spend $5 to see this on a matinee just to see a group of billionaires drop acid and just run the camera?
Once again, I'll be interested to know what the 12-year-olds think, because I'm probably going to catch crap in the comments for not liking Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, Legend, The NeverEnding Story.
I like that NeverEnding Story I watched quite a few times.
Like, I understand why people like those movies. They watched it at a very specific time in their lives, and then it grew with them, and they were able to look back. They have the nostalgia. They can appreciate it for what it is. I do not like those movies. This felt like one of those where I watched it too late.
This didn't feel like that with me. Like, at least with, like, okay, NeverEnding Story, like, yeah, I'd watch it as a kid, and I certainly have nostalgic reasons for that, but it has the direction, the acting, even some pretty emotional scenes that you can kind of, right? Yeah.
No, I'm disagreeing.
The horse? Really?
Yeah.
In NeverEnding Story?
Dude,
you cried in this, but not when Artax died in NeverEnding Story?
No, that horse died. It got too sad and drowned in mud.
That you didn't like it? You didn't feel sad when the horse died?
I felt a little sad, but I was also like, why is this happening? What do any of these scenes have to do with each other? Why are we in space now? Who is this woman?
Okay, now it's not so much that I think you cry at every movie. Now I think it's you just cry at the bad ones. I'm kidding. I was there when we saw Coco together.
You got me. Oh no. I've been ruined because I probably did cry when Artax died, honestly.
I'm sure you did.
That doesn't make it a good scene.
Yeah, it does.
No.
It gives you the emotion you were supposed to get from that scene. You're supposed to be sad and cry in that scene.
Well, I was supposed to be sad and cry when she reunited with her dad.
Yeah, you are, and it worked because the acting was good in that scene.
But again, that doesn't make it a good movie.
I'm not saying NeverEnding Story is good just because of the horse scene.
That's exactly what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's one of the better scenes, I think, in that movie, but there is well acted enough and well written enough and interesting enough characters in that movie that can make it enjoyable as an adult. I know what kind of movie you're talking about, and how I feel about what you're saying is how I feel about The Wizard, where it's like I enjoy The Wizard as a kid, and do I enjoy it as an adult? Yeah, but it's not because I think it's quality filmmaking. It's because it's a movie I grew up with, and I have nostalgic reasons for that. I don't think that way about like NeverEnding Story necessarily. Maybe NeverEnding Story 2.
My favorite part of NeverEnding Story is when he goes back to the real world and it turns out that his dragon's still there, and so he uses it to attack bullies.
Yeah. My favorite part in the NeverEnding Story is when he gets yelled at by the old man and the books. It's actually been a while since I've seen that movie, but I would watch that one. I watched that one more than I did Labyrinth as a kid.
Labyrinth, I was just mad at her for being such a little bitch, but contrary-wise, I was kind of mad at Meg in this movie for not being enough of a little bitch, because she was a bitch in the book, and that was part of her appeal. Yeah. Like, she says, I give you your faults. The faults are like stubbornness and obstinateness and kind of like a disinterest in listening to authority, whereas her faults in this are just like a... kind of like a...
I was on her side through a lot of stuff. I was glad she threw a basketball at that girl's face.
That girl deserved a basketball to the face. Those girls were not in the original book. I feel like
of course
this movie, like, this is neither here nor there, but this movie inserted a lot of, like, weird antagonistic female relationships that didn't fucking need to be in it.
What do you mean? The book didn't open with a conversation about Bono and Van Halen? Nope. Chapter 1, which is better? I'm like, American Psycho now? God damn it, I hated this fucking movie. No, I don't.
It's because I don't like horses. Maybe that's the reason Artax didn't get to me.
Oh, you don't like horses?
No, they're scary and they bite people.
They are scary.
Yeah, kill all of them.
But Artax...
also, all horses are too safe.
Artax seemed nice. You would have liked it in Death Wish 3 when, for no reason whatsoever, there's a wanted poster for a horse in the background.
Was it Bad Horse?
I have no... A couple commenters made that reference, too. I have no idea. Death Wish 3 is kind of amazing, by the way. It's way better than this. I've seen some bad movies this year because we're past January and February. I can't remember what those bad movies were. This movie's worse. God.
I mean, this movie's probably going to make it on my bottom 10. But again, like, I feel like children might like it. It's very colorful, and it's got some... It's got some good points, and it's got an interesting world. Although, honestly, like, if you've got children and they enjoy it, tell them to read the book. Like...
Or show them Dark Crystal.
Don't show them Dark Crystal. Your children deserve better than that.
Oh, but this?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
Dark Crystal gave me nightmares, and I'll tell you why. It was those children running in the Muppet suits. It was, like, there was this period of time where the Jim Henson and Company,
Oh, yeah. Irving's got his clown doll over there from the Game Night Review.
Make it run like the Dark Crystal babies. No, I'm shitting on these movies, and, like, I'm overdoing it just because I feel strongly, but, like, again, I don't hate Dark Crystal and that. They're just not for me because I didn't watch them as a child.
No, I agree. I'm kind of in the same boat there with you. And like I said earlier, I didn't grow up with The only one that I kind of did was NeverEnding Story, but maybe it's because it was just on more. But like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, no, I didn't grow up with them. Legend, I never really cared that much for, but those others, like I could go back and rewatch fine. Like it probably wouldn't be my idea to rewatch it necessarily, but like visually speaking, I find them more appealing than this movie. And then this movie is well shot, I'll give it that. But on an acting level and on a script level, man, no, I wasn't into this like at all. So I don't even know what to say to go see. Go see Black Panther's still playing. Go see that.
Go see Hurricane Heist. I watched the preview. It looked hilarious.
I haven't even seen Hurricane Heist yet, but please go see that over this movie. Go see anything else that's out right now instead of this. No, take the kids to Death Wish.
Do we got time for previews?
Yeah.
Show Dogs.
Oh, man.
Tequila and Bonetti, the movie.
That movie looks like I wished for a Tequila and Bonetti movie on a monkey's paw.
It came back wrong!
That movie looks like I already knew that movie was coming out because so many people wrote to me about it, and it looks like Donald Belisario is going to sue someone over that fucking movie. That movie looks like, that's why I'm so glad Tequila and Bonetti came out when it did. Otherwise, it would have been this shit.
Why would you give a dog a bikini wax? Because, like, a dog is all furry, so it's just going to have, like, a perfect stripe of hairless, like a perfect hairless patch around its dog vagina.
Well, he's a talking dog, so maybe that's what he wants.
It's like a reverse Brazilian. Everything but the landing strip. God. Except for the dog, because it's a dog. That's gross.
I love how that trailer says from the director of Beverly Hills Chihuahua and the Smurfs, as if I'm supposed to say, ooh. Oh, okay, well, at least we're in good hands.
Uncle Drew, that movie looked confusing.
Holy shit. Okay, what year are we living in? Because there was 2 trailers in a row that are both Shaq movies.
Well, because it was like it's all like basketball players in old man makeup. It's like, why did they put them in old man makeup?
Because it's based on like it's because it's based on a series of commercials, like where
oh no.
Right? It's based on a series of it's basically if Bad Grandpa with Johnny Knoxville was a Nike ad. like that. That's
they made it the caveman movie.
That's right. Yeah. So that's why it's this. I can't remember the players' name, but that's why it's got these basketball players in it with old man makeup. The main guy is an NBA player. Okay. So man, they put that trailer.
Get the old crew back together.
They put that trailer in front of Black Panther.
Oh no!
Don't forget, this is coming out. Man, that doesn't. I am excited for it. Same with Show Dogs.
It's like old man makeup technology. I feel like should be light years ahead of what they're showing in this particular movie.
You can see his beard coming off in one scene. Maybe that'll be the twist.
It just looked like he's got like silly putty where his cheeks should be. She liked gnomes, we talked about.
Yeah.
The Grinder?
The
The
Grinch.
Grinch. Yeah, whatever.
It's an Illumination movie, so it'll probably be wildly mediocre.
Well, that's, who is it, the Minions?
Yeah.
It's like Despicable Me I liked. Despicable Me 2, man, the Minions,
3 wasn't very good. You know it's
That's
an
where we had like a twin brother or something?
Yeah, and it's definitely an Illumination movie, because on the logo in front of the trailer, they have the Minions scream at you.
He screams, Illumination!
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know, maybe the Grinch will be fine, I don't know.
Oh, Hotel Transylvania 3. We have this preview memorized, because that one time we watched it 3 times in a row.
We've seen that trailer so many times, it dwarfs what the actual running time of the movie is going to be.
Blobby's gonna throw up.
You're quoting the trailer
It's like a
along with it.
hotel on the water.
It'd be funny if there was a guy in the back of the theater like, I was at that screening too.
Hey, you guys, remember me? You guys! Dear Simon, which we've seen already.
That looks really good.
Ready Player One. Okay, so... Is this the first time you've gotten a preview for this
No,
movie?
I've gotten it quite a few times.
Okay. Like, my Twitter feed is not big on the prospects for this movie.
Neither's my Twitter feed, but I don't think a lot of them see a lot of really terrible movies. So, I don't know, look, Ready Player One could be bad. I don't know. I've never read the book, but the trailers look fine. I just sat through Wrinkle in Time. I'm fine with sitting through Ready Player One. Mm-hmm. And it could be bad, but I don't have this hate boner for it like my Twitter feed does.
I feel like I should have a bingo card that bring to this movie that's got like the Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, Legend, to see if it makes references to those movies during Ready Player One.
It probably does. It makes references to about every... Chucky is in the trailer for that movie.
I only saw Iron Giant. Like,
yeah,
most of those references probably just blew right past
me.
me.
The Battletoads are in that movie.
I spent the 80s watching The Great Muppet Caper over and over and over again.
They're probably in it, too.
Just Charles Grodin, like, catch him on my comic
I don't have a problem with the movie having a bunch of references in it, because the plot is dependent on it having references in it.
Yeah, I mean... if you want me to see that one, just let me know ahead of time so I can read the book.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so Christopher Robin, which is not what I expected it to be. Because I saw the preview pop up, I'm like, what? So that one where it's like a real life story of A.A. Milne? Because that one...
That was Goodbye, Christopher Robin.
Goodbye, Christopher Robin. This is Hook, but for Christopher Robin.
It is, yeah, I was thinking that too.
I'm 100% on board with.
I lost my marbles, Pete. like, man.
Toodles found his marbles.
God, yeah, this is a really confusing year to have the word Christopher Robin in your title, because there's been 2 movies like that already.
I bet Ready Player One has a reference to Hook in it.
I hope Winnie the Pooh shows up in that with a bazooka.
And then Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins Returns.
Oh, sorry. I just wrote Mary Poppins because that's what they show, but then they hashtag Mary Poppins Returns.
I hope it's just like Batman Returns.
I mean, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda, so I'll probably watch it, but...
Oh, yeah, that was him in the...
Yeah, dude, he birthed the chimney sweep.
It's gonna be this... It seems like now, like, Disney is when we're getting the big Hollywood musicals between last year with Greatest Showman... The year before with La La Land, now Mary Poppins Returns. So it's like, all right, well, here's the big musical of the year, so I'm down. I hope it's not just re-singing the songs from the first movie.
My understanding, I think it's a sequel. Like, it's not a remake. It's supposed to be like the new generation.
Well, Jungle Book 2 is a sequel too, and that just sang Bare Necessities every 5 minutes. Oh, was that it?
That was it.
I got another movie to get to. I got to go see Gringo.
Oh, the preview for that looked funny.
That movie looks hilarious. I
Tell Irving he should bring his little clown in and sit him on his lap and clap his little hands together. Just bring like the porcelain tink of hand on hand, just tink, 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 tink.
Most people probably will be smoking pot in that theater, so it's probably a good idea. All right, everyone. Thanks a bunch for watching.
Bye, guys.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.